Elite Soccer Youth Development Academy invites you to the 9th Annual ESYDA Award Banquet 2020. Saturday, November 7th from 10 a.m. till 1 p.m. The banquet will be structured differently from previous years, ensuring everyone's safety. Please save this date, Saturday, November 7th from 10 until 1. For more information, go to esYDA.org. Media partner, Afrique Today TV. Afrique Today, the best of digital TV.
Do you want to promote your business? Do you want to talk about your nonprofit organization? Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Afrique Today. Fogham, where you can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Afrique Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information, go to www.afriquetoday.com. Afrique Today, the best of digital TV. Do you want to promote your business? Do you want to talk about your nonprofit organization? Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Afrique Today. Fogham, where you can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Afrique Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information, go to www.afriquetoday.com. Afrique Today, the best of digital TV.
Hello, hello, and welcome to the Voice of AAU, American Africans United, here on Afrique Today. We want to thank you for being here, and I am your host, Dr. Yvette Butler-Yaboa, with my co-host, the Invisible Man, and we have a special. Thank you. So we have a special person on today, but one thing I want to really talk about. First of all, I've missed everyone for a week or two. During elections, we have elections on the brink. We have, I look at it as United States on fire. Things haven't changed for us. Here we are post-election. And today's topic and today's show is about what's next? What's next for African descendants here in the United States? I want to say this election, which is still going on for our presidential election, it has really taught me something. And it's sad to say, with over 50% of the country being in limbo, it's almost 50-50 for everywhere you look. And with all the protests and all the social unrest that we had this year, for us to look at what happened during this election cycle, these last month and days of November 3rd as our ultimate day for elections, unfortunately, it showed me, and probably many others out there, that Black lives don't matter. And that's sad to say. As an African American woman with African children, it's really difficult to say that. But with everything happened, we all thought we'd have a different outcome either way. But I don't know if anyone really thought about and cared about what really happened and what continually happens to African Americans. Or we say our guest today talks about Afro descendants here in the United States. So now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our guest today because he's going to tell us what's next for Afro descendants here in the United States. Today, I want to give a warm welcome to our special guest, Minister Mustafa Nazir Salim, who is currently the CEO of Muhammad's Temple, which is located in Atlanta, Georgia. Our minister took a journey in Islam, which began in July 1996, when he introduced the teachings. 1966. I hope I said 1966 because I said that was a long time ago. It was only, and actually that was 5 years after I was born, which is a long time ago. I know, telling my age now, but he was first introduced to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, peace be unto him. It began in a small mosque or temple, which was called at the time in Monroe. One thing to know about this young man, he's been dedicated, he served his life for uplifting salvation of his people and the so-called Negroes, which are now Afro-descendant peoples. Along the way, the minister educated himself and attended Northeast Louisiana State and Mercer University, where he studied business management, administration, and political science. The minister is a co-founder of the United Supreme, which was organized to combat teen violence and gang activity in the public schools. And he's a co-founder of the Coalition of Equal Justice, which is an association, an organization, social organization called the People's Agenda, which is headed by Dr. Joseph Lowry. Without further ado, I want to bring to you our esteemed minister, Mustafa Salim. Welcome, Minister Salim, and thank you again for being on our show.
Thank you, Doctor, for inviting me and having me here with you again at this time.
Now, I want to go right into. I first want you to talk a little bit about, because this is about post-election. What's next for Afro descendants here in the United States? So, can you give me a little feedback of what you thought about and what you think about what's still going on right now? Our elections. We don't have a president yet, and they said this was going to happen. We won't know who's going to win for months, days, months. Now it's here and it's happening. So, could you tell me a little about what you think about the elections? Because really not post-elections; they're still going on. Could you tell us a little bit about what your thoughts on what's happening right now in the United States?
As a student of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his spiritual son, the Most Honorable Silas Muhammad, we don't participate in America's political system. And I'll tell you why. In order to be a part of this society, you have to be forced into it. When you're very young as a child, during my lifetime, you were forced to say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. You were forced into voting. Otherwise, you wouldn't be worried about voting. Voting is alleged to be a way out for us. But in reality, we are participating in our own demise. We are about self-determination. And self-determination doesn't put us in the same arena with our slave master. We have two destinies, separate and distinct from one another. as we are being taught, the destiny of Afro-descendants is just beginning. The destiny of white people in America and others who follow them is coming to an end. We have the opportunity to create a world for ourselves. That's where we are headed. It's self-determined people. What is self-determination? Self-determination is the desire and process by which a people govern or create their own destiny. They determine their own political status. They determine what their religion and culture will look like. They are independent people. Self-determination is what we are about, and voting is a part and a path away from self-determination. We don't want to be assimilated.
Well, what I want to ask now, you've talked about Afro-descendants. I don't know if all of our guests out there tonight know what an Afro-descendant is. And so I want you to take a little time to tell us what Afro-descendant is in detail and what is the difference between Afro-descendants and a person of African descent. And before you do that, I want to remind all of my listeners and the ones out there today, this is a live show. You can call in, ask questions of Minister Salim. He's open to any questions. He's very versed on reparations and Afro descendants and everything about us in this country. So please don't forget to call in. So without further ado, please, Minister Salim, could you explain to us a little bit what it is, Afro descendants, and the difference between African descent?
Afro-descendants are first and foremost a people, and that word is very important. We'll talk about that in a moment. Afro-descendants are people who were forcibly dispossessed of their homeland, Africa. They were transported to the Americas and the diaspora for the purpose of enslavement and were actually subjected to slavery. They were also subjected to forced mixed breeding and rape. They have experienced through force the loss of mother tongue, culture, and religion. They have experienced racial discrimination due to lost ties or partially lost ties to their spiritual and original identity. And they are going through a process called ethnogenesis. Afro-descendants is a term that was first utilized by many of our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean, in South and Central America. We utilize it today because we decided as a people, which is part of self-determination, is to identify self. We didn't have an identity. When Mr. Muhammad, the Honorable Silas Muhammad, went out on the UN, he was looking for reparations for us. And in the process of fighting for reparations for us, he discovered that we didn't have an identity that was uniquely ours. And the commissioners of the United Nations didn't know where to put us or what to do with us. And so the 19 different nations of the diaspora in 2002 decided that they were going to utilize the identity of Afro-descendant. It didn't have a definition at that time. It was Mr. Muhammad and Queen Mishaki Muhammad who sat down and overnight drafted the definition of Afro-descendants, which I just gave. The difference between Afro-descendants and people of African descent is their political status, their experience, and their destinies. When we say people of African descent, we are put in the mindset of what Dr. Ben Carson said about Africans coming to this country they came as immigrants. That's how people of African descent got to the Americas, to the diaspora. But those of us who are Afro-descendants came here as slaves or were brought here for the purpose of becoming a slave. When we say people of African descent, white people can be a part of people of African descent, because you have a lot of white people in South Africa. Matter of fact, for a long time, they ran South Africa, and they could be considered people of African descent. So we want to separate ourselves through our identity as Afro-descendant. And Afro-descendants are not just Muslims. Afro-descendants include Hebrew Israelites. Afro-descendants include Moors, Christians, persons of no religion at all, or no particular political aspirations at all. We are a people trying to identify with our experience, and our experience is common. We have a common experience. We have a common destiny. Our destiny is not tied to America's destiny. That's what's going on now. If you are tied to voting and you're depending totally upon how the outcome of an election is going to be in this country, then you are hitching your wagon and your horse, the horse to a wagon that's destined to fall. Just like Rome, Greece fell, America is falling, and she's going to continue to fall. We don't want to be a part of America's fall. It's time for us to make a decision about our destiny and join on to us as a people, Afro-descendants.
Now, let me ask a question, because there's been a lot of, we've been labeled with a lot of different names, Afro-descendants, and American Africans United, that African we're talking about now. Tell me, what is the difference between the Afro-descendants and they say ADOS now, African descendants of slaves. What is the difference between Afro-descendants than Afro-descendants, the African descendants of slaves? Are those synonymous, or is there any difference?
What we have in the UN, the United Nations, that recognizes peoples, there are two peoples that they recognize that have, and as a people, you can have human rights. If you're not a people, you don't have human rights. So as peoples who have human rights, they look to two identifying groups: Afro-descendants and people of African descent. Those of us who were brought here for the purpose of slaves, we are different, as we have been raped and spoiled and forced into assimilation into their society. We become a different people. And we are going through a process called ethnogenesis. It's the formation of an ethnic group or culture, new culture. We are a new people, and we want to be recognized as a people. We are recognized as Afro-descendants. We are not recognized as African Americans. We're not recognized as Negroes, colored people. When we were called all of these things, we were tied to the white man here in America, and wherever we were made a slave. So we want to be separated. We don't want to be integrated. And integration is the only process by which our money is integrated. We don't have true integration, as you can well see today from the election, the way that it was panned out, that we're not integrated. For the only thing that is truly integrated is our money.
Yeah, that's true. Now, is there an alternative for self-determination? Is there anything else that we should be looking out for besides just self-determination as
There,
Afro-descendants and as Black people in this country?
there is one thing that you can be certain of. If you don't self-determine, you will be forcibly assimilated. Let me talk to you a little bit about forced assimilation. Mr. Muhammad gave us a good example of how forced assimilation takes place. He said, you remember the movie Roots, how they had him tied to a tree, Kunta Kinte, and
Yeah.
the overseer was telling him that his name was Toby. And he said, my name is Kunta Kinte. So he beat him. And he asked him his name. He said, my name is Kunta Kinte. And he said, no, your name is Toby. And he did this repeatedly until Toby, in order to save his life, Kunta Kinte, in order to save his life from being beaten to death, acquiesced and called his name Toby. Now, in the movie, they were able to carry on some portion of their language, their culture, and some of their religious practice. And so the way the story is told, they didn't lose complete identity. He was able to find his roots back to the Gambia, I'm sorry. But most of us did not have a connection to our identity, our original identity. We were forced to speak English or try to speak English. We're not very good at it even today. You can listen to my English and know that we're not very good at English. We were not allowed to speak our mother tongue. If we don't able to speak our mother tongue, then we're not able to communicate with those that speak our language. And as a result, we lost our identity, connection to our original identity. That's the worst thing that can ever happen to a people, because you lose your aspirations, because inside of your language are all of your knowledge, all of your aspirations, all of your longings and dreams and hopes are lost. We lost our identity, and we had to have an identity to protect our human rights. Only people can have human rights. That's one of the reasons why we're on the subject, is nobody wanted to indict the police for killing Breonna Taylor. They didn't want to really indict those who killed Eric Garner. They didn't want to indict any of the killings for people as murder, because in order to have a murder, you have to be a human being that's the victim of the death. You can't be a dog. You can't be something that you're not and get protection of criminal law. And nobody wants to charge these people with taking the life of another human being, especially since they didn't think of us as human.
For all of those watchers out there who are watching us on Facebook, remember to share it live. Share it on your Facebook page, because we need people to hear more about this. And a question I have now: what do you say to Afro descendants who are satisfied right now of living in America and do not wish to leave and feel they're a fiber of this country and it's our country too as well, and just want to stay? What do you say to those? And what do you say to those who can't leave?
I would warn against staying, but you have the right to freedom, justice, and equality. And you can make your own decision about whether or not you wish to leave America or stay. But let me warn you that America is falling. And it has a destiny that's different than the slave children's. The slave children went on from Pharaoh and started their own land, was in their own land, flowing with milk and honey. What happened to Pharaoh? He was drowned. Him and his whole army were drowned. And so if you want to stay, don't feel like we don't care about you, because we do. We will prepare a place for you if and when you decide you want to come. It will be there. Just like the Jews, they have dual citizenship. Why couldn't you have dual citizenship in your own country, which we call Afrodesendant nation, and still stay in America until you decide that you want to go? But I would encourage you not to stay. America has a terrible, terrible doom coming her way. It's already begun and being plagued. On the West Coast, we got fires. On the East Coast, we got floods and tornadoes, and we've got lots and lots of plaguing going on, droughts, floods, and all of these different things that are plaguing America. COVID-19 is plaguing America. People dying by the hundreds of thousands today. America is being plagued. Come out of her, my people.
For those of us who can't go, first of all, where would we go? That's the first and foremost. And for those of us who cannot afford to go any place, what do we do?
There is a place prepared for you to go. We will not announce where we are going for fear that we would be stopped from going where we want to go. We are wiser today than some of our forefathers were about keeping our information close to our breast. There will be a way for you to leave. Just as the slave children in the Bible had an avenue for them to leave, just when they thought they couldn't escape, Pharaoh was on their tails, they were able to escape and go to safety. Follow the dictates and direction of the Afro-descendant nation, and you will find your way out. You will find your way to safety. It's a process. That's what self-determination is. It's a process. You don't get it all at one time.
Well, we want to change gears, and we want to show a slide. Can we have the slide? We want to show a slide of some unique people who people know historically. Two unbelievable young men. Can we have the slide, please? And then I want you to talk to this slide and tell us who's in this picture, and also tell us what does it say about unity?
What you're looking at are two giants of men, two great men, both of which love their people. They have great love, care, and concern for Black people. They had differences in the way that they looked at the destiny and future of the people. Dr. King believed in integration. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad believed in separation. They both believed in the righteousness of their cause. They believed that what they were doing was the best and most prosperous way in which to go and direct the people to follow. Dr. King made a momentous speech, his mountaintop speech. He said, "I may not get there with you, but I know that our people will get to the promised land." He had been to the mountaintop. He had spoken with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and Messenger Elijah Muhammad had kind of given him his viewpoint of what the destiny of Black people was. And he could say truthfully that he had seen it from that vantage point. He was saying to the people, I have gone too far to turn around, and my life is on the line, and I'm going to stand up for what I believe in. But he was able to detect from the speaking with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad what the destiny of Black people was. Now, Dr. King was executed, was killed, assassinated. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad lived to his death, his natural causes. Well, Messenger Elijah Muhammad and I will call him Honorable Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. They were men who had differences, but they were willing to put aside some of those differences and come together. That's why they met. Messenger Elijah Muhammad had written a letter to Dr. King and a number of other leaders of SNCC, CORE, and other groups to try to have them come and sit with him. The Honorable Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was the only one who came to sit with him. Now, in this letter, Messenger Elijah Muhammad was asking him to come meet with him for the purpose of a united Black front so that we might unite our people. That's the key to our success, is unity. And they both knew that. We have differences and we have to work through our differences. We have to do that. Nobody's going to come and direct our path. The only person who came to us from the East was Master Farad Muhammad. And he gave us the information through the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that we would be able to establish a foundation so that our children coming behind us would have a future. That's what we're fighting for, a future for our children. And that's what they were fighting for, a future for our children.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, I wanted to go back to this other slide. Then we're going to take a commercial break after this, but I want to go back to the slide where the quote that Biden had said. So it's on the screen now, this quote that Biden had said now. Look at this quote from Vice President Biden, and I'll give you a response. And this quote it's very interesting because I want people to take a little time to read it. It says, I do not buy the concept popular in the 60s, which is, we have surpassed the Black man or suppressed the Black man for over 300 years, and the white man is now far ahead. And so the quote was there. I want to see if we can get that quote back up. So that quote that was from Vice President Biden. Can you give me your response? Because here he is. He's on the brink of an election, and what do you really think that he meant by this, and what do you think he'll do if he does become president?
Well, that quote from him went on to talk about his not having any responsibility to answer for the sins of his father or the fathers who enslaved us. Well, that idea comes from scripture, out of the Bible itself, that the sins of the fathers would be visited upon the children in the third and fourth generation. Now, I didn't make that up. That's in the Bible. Now, where he might feel that he's not going to endorse paying reparations, he will be whipped and forced into it. America will suffer many calamities and plagues until she submits. She's going to pay reparations. This you can count on. This I stake my life on. She will pay reparations to her ex-slave children. Now, you have a responsibility to pay reparations because the UN has sanctioned it. And you are a member of the United Nations. You have violated international law, and you should make restitution for it. Reparations. You should pay reparations. The group from the UN itself has said and come to the Senate and the House and told them that they need to go ahead and pay reparations. Reparations was paid to the Jews from Germany. We want reparations the way that the Jews got reparations, not the way that the Indians got theirs. They were forcefully assimilated. We don't want to be forcibly assimilated any further than we've already been. We want self-determination. We want freedom, justice, and equality in a land that we can call our own. That's what we want. Stop looking at reparations as just a paycheck. You need more than just money, because we don't produce anything to do barter and trade with. So it's to make money to sustain ourselves. So what we got to do is we've got to have reparations in a form that will be sustaining for us. And a paycheck is not going to get that done. Mr. Muhammad has a blueprint for getting reparations for us as a people. And we need to sit down on that and take a look at it and draw the lines through it or open it up so that we can get this job done for our people. That's what this is all about, is getting justice, freedom, and equality for our people. That's what we're about.
Well, thank you. We're going to take a commercial break. And when we come back on the commercial break, we're going to have what Donald Trump has now said regarding the same issue. So we're going to go to a commercial break, and we will see you in just a few seconds. Audience, you can still call in. Remember that next we're going to talk about what Donald Trump has said about the same topic of reparations.
Elite Soccer Youth Development Academy invites you to the 9th Annual ESYDA Award Banquet 2020. Saturday, November 7th from 10 a.m. till 1 p.m. The banquet will be structured differently from previous years, ensuring everyone's safety. Please save this date, Saturday, November 7th from 10 until 1. For more information, go to esYDA.org. Media partner, Afrique Today TV. Afrique Today, the best of digital TV.
Do you want to promote your business? Do you want to talk about your nonprofit organization? Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Afrique Today Fogham, where you can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Afrique Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information, go to www.afriquetoday.com. Afrique Today, the best of digital TV.
Welcome back. Now we're going to talk about what Donald Trump said on that same issue, or similar to on that same issue of reparations. So can we see the quote that Donald Trump has talked about? Can we have that quote? And Minister Salim, I want you to talk a little bit about his quote and kind of give us your thoughts on what Donald Trump has said.
Certainly.
So we're going to try to get his quote up so that we can have that in front of everyone, so people can look at this quote. Well, while we get the quote up, could you tell me with everything going on with the presidential election and during the primaries when everyone was running on the Democratic side, because the Republican side did not have anyone, and conversations and discussions and all these different forums. Tell me, everyone talks about reparations. Now, where do we stand? Where do we really stand on reparations? It was so much talk about reparations, but where do we really stand?
When you go back and take a look at reparations in this very modern 21st century, it got its leg up from the Honorable Silas Muhammad going to the UN in Geneva and putting forth a demand through a petition that he drafted and his attorneys drafted to obtain reparations for us. Now, reparations is one of the things that we need, because freedom without reparations makes self-determination an illusion. And we're not operating on an illusion. We're operating on the promise, the covenant made between Abraham and his God, and Abraham's seed and his God, that they would undergo 400 years of slavery and affliction. Well, we've done that. We've done and performed as God wanted us to perform. Now he's performing. All you got to do is take a look around and you'll see God performing. They're calling on people to deal with global warming. How are you going to deal with global warming? I know you think you got all the answers, but it's going to continue to occur. Then you've got fires and other disasters, natural and would seem to be unnatural, man-made. Whether they are man-made or what you call God created, is real. We're living through these times, and we are understanding that reparations is a must. It's an absolute must for us to be able to self-determine. So reparations has to be paid, and it will be paid. Now, Donald Trump doesn't think that he owes anything because he's thinking about just slavery. But we're not just talking about slavery. We got ongoing, lingering effects of having been a slave that we're suffering from. And we have UN protection and rights under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 27. We have rights to our own culture. We have a right to speak our own language. We have a right to our own religion. We have a right to the protection of the UN so that we might discuss our will as a people to do what we need to do in order to self-determine. So they're going to pay reparations. They're going to have to pay reparations because this is their law. This is what they put in on the books. They ratified the International Covenant in 1992. And in it, it gives us certain protectable rights as a people. Self-determination is every people's right, and we are people today.
So we got the quote. If I just want to read just a few lines of what Donald Trump had said. Um, Donald Trump said in an interview, and this was back in June when all the Democratic candidates were talking about reparations and what to do. Now, he says in the quote, he thinks it's the concept that the federal government giving reparations to descendants of slaves is very unusual. And then he goes on to say other things. Um, so so with both, whoever gets into office, do you think we have any leverage with either one as Afro descendants?
We have leverage, and that will be made known at the proper time as to what the leverage is. But we do have leverage. One part of it is the part I just gave on Article 27 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 27. So that's protectable under the UN Charter. And the United States is a member of the United Nations and subject to the same rules, regulations, laws, and penalties that any other nation is subject to who has signed and ratified the agreement. And so the United States is therefore bound to do what she's supposed to do to make us whole, and at least put us in a position where we can take care of ourselves and do for self. And that's something that we can just about put your life on. It may not happen in my lifetime, but it's going to happen. That's going to take place because she's going to continually be whipped until she's forced to pay reparations.
Now, just we always talk about reparations. What does reparations really look like? I mean, I don't think it's just a check,
That's a good question.
but that's just my impression. But what does reparations really look like for African descendants of slaves or African descendants? What does it look like?
Look like textile machinery, looks like road building equipment, looks like ships and boats and planes, looks like technology, looks like checks, look like food, agriculture machinery, looks like health care equipment. It looks like what a nation of people need to sustain and cause progression among themselves. That's what it looks like.
Thank you, thank you. So, my fear is that we have so many people on different sides of the reparation coin, and I believe HR 46, if I have it correctly, that
HR 40.
Sheila Jackson, HR 40 that Sheila Jackson Lee has entered to study the reparations. And so I want you to give me a little bit of comments on that. Then I want you to talk about what, I'm not sure if you're aware of Governor Newsom in California is doing. They're looking at how to give reparations to those descendants of slaves, Afro descendants in California. So could you tell me a little bit about, first address HR 40, and then if you know about what's going on in California with Governor Newsom, can you comment on that and how effective that will be? And if it's successful, would that be a model to take across the United States?
The HR 40 was written and drafted by the late Congressman John Conyers. He wrote the bill to create a study so that we could determine whether or not reparations should be paid. In 25 years of putting the bill before the Congress, they never came out of committee. There was never any debate. There was never a study. When we went before the United Nations with our plight for reparations, they came back with a determination that reparations ought to be paid, and that is present to this very day. The chairman of the UN Council has also said to the United States, you need to pay reparations. That's as we speak today, this has been done. So we don't need a study. The UN has already said that you'll do it. We're trying to get as many of our people on board as we possibly can so that we might go forward and do for ourselves what other nations have done. We've got some of the best minds on the planet here in this country, original Black minds in this country, who can take care and do anything that we need done. We're running America now. We run America. They depend on you and me to make things work here in this country. We can take care of ourselves if given the opportunity to, and given the tools that we need to work with. And they need to give us those things because they owe it to us, not because we're looking for a handout. We want you to pay us for what you've done and are still doing to us. Even though the shackles have been taken off of our legs, our feet, and our arms, our necks, we still have the shackles in our head. And they refuse to remove those shackles. They refuse to create the books and the information necessary to put a different spin on what the experience was like in America for Black people with minds. They refuse to give freedom, justice, and equality to us. They have institutions that are systemically discriminatory. Their institutions are designed that way. Never do they intend to give freedom, justice, and equality. They never intended for that. Afrodescendant definition tells you that we were brought here for a purpose of enslavement. Now the people are saying, well, they've had a change of heart. No, they're just trying new tactics. When you want to keep a people subjugated, you do things that keep them in the dark, in the blind, not knowing, not giving the truth, no transparency in what's taking place with them. We have a problem dealing with America because America is a deceptive nation. She's a deceiver, and she deceived our people, our original forefathers who were brought here. They were deceived into coming here. The 20 that came, they were deceived into coming, following John Hawkins over here. When they got here, they turned them into becoming slaves. But that was the intent all the while. Well, the same intent exists. We talked about this once before, Doc, about slavery and the so-called abolition of slavery. Slavery was never abolished, not in the true sense of the word. The word that they used to identify what was supposedly the root of our not being made slaves is emancipation. And the word itself has an origin that means to transfer ownership, emancipate. Mm-hmm. And in the transfer of ownership, you see in the 13th Amendment that slavery was taken out of the hands of private ownership, private enterprise, and turned over into a government institution. That's what you see taking place today. Now they've turned it back into a business enterprise, but from the 13th Amendment concept, they never intended to abolish slavery. They only meant to change its form and use it by way of government intervention. That's what they plan to do, continue to plan to do.
Now, do you know what Governor Newsom of California is doing right now at all with reparations? Are you familiar with what they're doing and what they're trying to do out in California?
You know, there's a couple of places that are trying to do this, but reparations has to be paid to the people that are affected and the victims of America's atrocious acts. Now, they can do what they want for their citizens, the people in their jurisdiction, but it will not relieve them of the obligation to pay reparations to the Afro-descendant nation, because we as a group of people have UN rights. We have the right to self-determination, and we have the right to reparations. If they want to give away checks to their citizens, more power to them. But that's not going to mitigate what they have to do for the Afro-descendant nation.
Dr. Butler.
Thank you. Yes,
Is it possible we can see the video clip? It's a vintage video clip. I wanted to surprise the Assistant Chief Minister. Is it possible to see that clip? Is Pierre
yes,
around?
it is. Yes, Pierre, do we have the vintage video clip, the one of when they actually, I guess it's about 5 years now, 5 years
Yes, ma'am.
ago, they actually had a meeting on reparations. So reparations has been talked about for decades here in the United States. For those of you who might not be familiar, we have been looking at this, and there's been studies going on. And remember, some of these young people don't know 40 acres and a mule. 40 acres and a mule was what they were supposed to give I said when they freed us from being enslaved, they were supposed to give us 40 acres and a mule. And that was never given to anyone. I always tell people I want my 40 acres and my mule, which I still never got. But unfortunately, it's been talked about since then. And to this date, every other nation that has been oppressed by this country and other countries have received reparations. Only those of African descent and those of us who are African descendants of slaves here in the United States and other places have never, to this day, received reparations.
That's
And
correct.
reparations are different to many people. It's and just not in the form of a check, but building up our communities, ensuring that we have our own ways of reinvesting within ourselves and continually flourishing our African descendant communities, which we have not had the opportunity due to the system which we live within. So I'm hoping that we can. There's a vintage clip. I'm not sure if we have that.
Where's Pierre? He didn't drink his coffee?
Well, we might not have that. We might not have that vintage clip. So, Minister Salim, as they
Yes.
work on that, please tell us more about just post-election. What's next? And your last final thoughts. What's next for us as Afro-descendants, ADOS, African descendants of slaves, for Black people in this country? What is next for us?
We must unite. We must come together, put aside our differences, and work on those areas where we have common cause to fight, because no nation can be birthed unless there is a people who are willing to fight for it, die for it, live for it. So says the Honorable Silas Muhammad. I believe that we have come to the end of the road. We used to say there was a crossroad, but it's more like a fork in the road. You can either go this way or that way. You can't go another other way. You've got to choose today what it is that you want for your children, whether you want them to continue in the same vein in which you and I have been continuing for the last 135 or 40 years, or do we say enough is enough? You don't want to get to the point where you do the things that are irrational for your future. You want to be in a state of mind where you do those things that are rational and productive for the development of us as a people. You can't meet this enemy where he wants to meet you. You've got to choose the battlefield where you want to meet the enemy. And we've chosen our battlefield, which is the United Nations. We want your support. And we want you to want a nation the way that we have wanted a nation for the last 80 some odd years. We want you to have the same feeling, the same aspiration. And in order to do that, we need to sit down and communicate with one another so that we will know where we both are. You don't have to follow my leader and teacher, but you do need to listen to him. You need to understand the points that he's trying to make to you so that you can make rational decisions about your future and the future of your children. That's what I'd like for you to be able to do in the future.
Now, one thing before we go, how do people get involved? How do they get in touch with you? How can people be part of the Afro-Descendant movement?
The Afro-Descendant Nation can be reached at ADN Unity, the number one, at gmail.com. That's ADN Unity, the number one, at gmail.com. And you can direct it to myself or any of the other officials in the Afro-Descendant Nation.
So, without further ado, I want to thank Minister Salim so much for the time tonight. I think this has been an unbelievable conversation again on reparations and where we go now post election, which I'm not sure where we're gonna go, but hope we'll get there. If you haven't seen it, I recommend everyone looking at the movie 13th. It's very touching, and not a movie, but it's a telling documentary on 13th, the 13th Amendment. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you seeing it. And lastly, I also want everyone to think about we have the Maryland Black Legislative Caucus. The 25th anniversary is upcoming. Please join us. Please consider joining the 25th annual Legislative Black Caucus Weekend, which is coming up November 14th. And you'll hear more about that. There's going to be Roland Martin. There's going to be wonderful folks. And that convention, as you know, the Maryland State Black Legislative Caucus is 25 years old, and they and we need your support. This election season has been a very tough season. It's been a season that shows us that Black lives don't matter. The only way that we can matter is from working from within. So we have to learn and to put our officials into office so that they can work behind scenes with us to make a difference. And if we can't, we're going to have to start creating our own nations, like the Afro-Descendant Nation. Because in this country here, which I love dearly, I am very disheartened with what has happened over the last year, the last 6 months, the last 3 months, the last month. And it continues happened where Black lives don't matter. I want to thank my co-host who did. I didn't give him a chance to talk today. I'm so sorry, co-host. If you wanna say something at the last words, but I want to thank everyone for watching.
Dr. Butler, you did very well. I couldn't have done better. Thank you.
And we want to thank Afrique Today for allowing us this
That's right.
opportunity to share what we feel is needed for the community to know. These are community conversations, and we hope to bring many people on with information for our folks, because it's all about knowledge. Knowledge is power. So once again, from your
Dr.
host,
Butler,
yes,
let me, I do want to say this. The Honorable Cyrus Muhammad, he says that knowledge activated is power. Just having the knowledge is one thing, but you have to activate the knowledge. So we need to get our
yes.
people to activate it. That's what the Honorable Cyrus Muhammad said. Thank you.
Now you heard it from my co-host. Come on, everyone, get out there and activate the knowledge that you receive. Once again, I want to thank Afrique Today, your host, Dr. Yvette Butler Yaboa, and my co-host,
The Invisible Man.
the Invisible. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
I said we'll never get to see the video. I just told him. He said that's all right. We'll see it one day. So.
Elite Soccer Youth Development Academy invites you to the 9th Annual ESYDA Award Banquet 2020. Saturday, November 7th from 10 a.m. till 1 p.m. The banquet will be structured differently from previous years, ensuring everyone's safety. Please save this date, Saturday, November 7th from 10 until 1. For more information, go to esYDA.org. Media partner, Afrique Today TV. Afrique Today, the best of digital TV.
But it didn't matter.
Do you want to promote your business? Do you want to talk about your nonprofit organization? Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Afrique Today. Fogham, where you can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Afrique Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information, go to www.afriquetoday.com. Afrique Today, the best of digital TV.